every young New Zealander unleash their potential to change the world. What would it take to make that happen? What would it actually take to make that happen? That's a question that's kind of haunted me for the last couple of years. I grew up in a tiny little rural village on the west coast of the South Island called Granity. Has anyone ever been to Granity before? Wow, heaps of people. Awesome. Cool. Tiny little rural village. My parents split up when I was about 8 years old. My mum, solo mum, raised my two sisters and I, largely. I wasn't hugely into school. I got a surfboard when I was about 12 and started adventuring. And the surf took me to Dunedin, where I studied. My passion was art and design and creativity, and through design I'd get out cameras every weekend and make surfing and skating films with mates and put on these big parties, kind of like Laura, and made a film called Carving the Future. We had a whole year to make a film about anything that we wanted, and we wanted to tell stories about young people who were taking action on something that they thought was important. And this little film, Carving the Future, 25-minute doco, ended up winning the Colorado International Film Festival. It's one of 3 finalists in the world for the BBC's Best Newcomer Award. But the favourite part was touring that film in schools and communities around the country and seeing how powerful film could be as a tool to spark conversation and ideas. And so largely based on the power of that film, set up Inspiring Stories, with the idea that we would apply to Vodafone World of Difference. We're lucky enough to get a bit of support, and wanted to give young people skills and tools in storytelling and filmmaking so that they could tell stories about other young people who were doing great stuff in the community, making a difference for New Zealand. And then tour those films back around the country. And we've literally run hundreds of events nationwide, including Stewart Island. And it's been an amazing learning curve. But I guess, whilst we've had all kinds of films in, from young people adventuring down the Wanganui River in kayaks made out of plastic bottles, young people running for council or advocating for women's rights, all sorts of things, storytelling is powerful, right? Stories shape our attitudes, our behaviour, our beliefs. Stories are what makes up our national identity. Stories are about how we perceive ourselves as New Zealanders, as a nation. But stories alone won't change the world, right? We need action. We need people who can be more effective at making a difference, right? So Festival for the Future really has 2 core aims. One is to celebrate a really diverse range of youth-led Kiwi innovation. So you guys giving you a chance to share your passion, your projects, your vision for New Zealand. The second big aim is around ideas and skills development. So we're lucky enough to be working with some of the more influential organisations in New Zealand who are passionate about supporting young people to stand on the shoulders of giants to make ideas with impact possible. So an event's great, right? After this weekend, everyone will come away buzzing, but what happens in the space in between, right? That's a challenge. What happens after the buzz dies down? So in New Zealand, we have a lot of great structures set up around high-growth commercial enterprise, but we have big gaps around the social and environmental impact space. And we've heard a little bit about Live the Dream. So Live the Dream looked to fill that gap, right? It happened for the first time ever down in Wellington. We had 7 very diverse youth-led ventures take part through that first-time program. It was an amazing pilot. You've seen a couple of the results tonight. This year, Live the Dream is going to run in both Auckland and Wellington. I believe that there's a time in our lives where our ability to take risk, to be bold and have a real crack at something, there's a time in our lives where our ability to do that is unique, especially amongst young people. It also strikes me that university campuses are empty, largely, over summer. So looking forwards, we're going to roll Live the Dream out across Otago, Christchurch, Wellington, Auckland, and Waikato. 5 campuses nationwide at one time. This summer, just Auckland and Wellington, which is really exciting. Applications are open now. If you guys develop an idea over the course of this weekend, please apply. It is an incredible opportunity. And I guess, it's a segue into this broader opportunity that we have as New Zealand. Right now, we have about 1 million young New Zealanders who are aged 13 to 30. That's pretty significant, right? 1 million young New Zealanders in that demographic. That's a quarter of our population. Let's start to consider a young person's journey, right? So perhaps at one end of the spectrum, we might have young people who are disengaged, who are apathetic. What does it take to provide a catalyst, to provide a spark? And if young people want to get engaged and make a difference, then how do we really enable them to be more effective at that? So what are the types of skills and capabilities that we might build as part of that? And then if young people want to get ventures or projects off the ground, how do we make those more effective? How do we enable them to have a greater impact and be sustainable in the long term? So here's the scope, right? Here's what's possible. And this idea of social entrepreneurship and social enterprise is a movement which is exploding around the world right now. New Zealand needs to step up. We've got an amazing opportunity. We've got, in Australia, for example, there's a comparable organisation called the Foundation for Young Australians, supporting young Australians to unleash their potential, doing all kinds of amazing work. These guys are running off a $50 million endowment fund. They've got major partnerships across corporates, across government. They're doing this stuff at scale. We need to be thinking at that level in New Zealand. So, look, I'm committed to building that. I think that's something that's so important for New Zealand right now. We need to invest in building this ecosystem that really builds intensive capability amongst young people for the betterment of our communities and our nation. The question is, are we up for it? And what's your role in enabling this movement? Kia ora.